What up, potty people? Welcome back to Clipped. I'm Eric, your host, and for those of you that are new, thank you for joining us. This is a podcast where I provide education, resources, podcasting tips, and insights from myself and my podcasting pals, all with the goal of help making your podcasting life easier. I'm on a mission to help you start, grow, and monetize your show. And today I'm diving into something that's truly been buzzing in the podcast community, and that's podcasting on YouTube. And there's various different viewpoints, although I think we're kind of getting to a collective viewpoint that you need to be on YouTube. And you probably need to have video. And I know all you audio people are like, shit, I don't have video. I hate video. It's hard. But I'm going to be talking about those things and more in this episode. But before that, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the support. The YouTube channel is growing, and it's timely that this episode is about YouTube. So stick with me. I'm going to be talking about why YouTube is a world of opportunity for podcasters. And I'm going to guide you through the process of properly uploading your video podcast on YouTube so that it can show up within YouTube Music, which is the platform that YouTube's really pushing for podcasting. So let's give it a go. Honestly, I'm a huge fan of audio-only podcasts or just listening to the audio version of podcasts. Listen to several a week. I grew up, cut my teeth as an audio engineer, so I really do respect the art of audio, and I love how I can listen to it when I'm driving or on a hike or doing whatever I'm doing, and I don't have to be 100% focused on a screen because for me, and probably for you, you're trying to get off screens or at least like lower your screen time. And so I don't have any plans, and I don't think anyone should have any plans or does have plans to stop killing it and crushing it with the audio version of their show. But when it comes to YouTube specifically, and that's what this episode is about, if you have an audio-only podcast, you're at a disadvantage. The new momentum and features that YouTube's rolling out, it's not really accommodating for audio. And if you're in a stage where shooting video sucks, or you don't have the equipment, or you're intimidated, or you hate editing it, you still can upload your audio episodes to YouTube with a static image, a thumbnail, maybe the waveform just plays, or maybe the audio is just embedded into the image. You could do that as a placeholder. I personally think it's a little lame, but it is better than nothing. So let's just set the table straight with that. Audio, you can upload to YouTube, and having some kind of presence is better than none at all, but you're really going to be missing out if you don't start creating a video podcast and don't start uploading it to YouTube. You need to be the face of your brand. You need to be out there. You need to be making personal and emotional connections, and your appearance is a big part of that. And we're just going to continue to see more and more of it. So don't get left out. Get on the train now and start taking advantage. So in a couple years from now, you're going to be like, well, shit, I started doing video on YouTube and it wasn't great at first and I was intimidated, but 30, 40 episodes later, I've kind of got my feet wet and I'm a little bit on a roll and I know how to talk to the camera and body language and I'm comfortable. And I just think you're going to be in a far better place with your brand, with your growth, than if you continue to just do audio only. And I hate saying that because I love audio. It's so much easier. I had to set up this shot. And my video game is still a little weak, but I'm working on it. It's getting better. I feel you. I've been there, and I think a lot of other people have as well. Okay, but in any case, let's look at some data here. It's taken from 2022, and so keep that in mind as I tell you these statistics. I'm going to report, per this study, that there's over 2 billion logged in YouTube users. Far more than podcasting. Well, podcasting, you don't log into anything, but 2 billion people logged in per this Edison study. 56% of surveyed participants identified as new podcast listeners, frequently coming to YouTube for podcasts and making YouTube their most frequently used platform for new podcast listens. Additionally, 43% of weekly podcast listeners in the US say YouTube is one of the services they use when listening to podcasts. Again, this is from this Edison study from 2022, so keep that in mind. And I don't know the size of the data pool, but per this Edison study, all I'm saying is that those are big numbers. 43%. I mean, I do watch stuff on YouTube and listen to clips, or not even short clips, but maybe 7 to 15 to 20 minutes of an hour-long show on YouTube sometimes. But traditionally, I'm listening to audio Those seem big though. I have a friend that I know for sure listens largely on YouTube, so I'll take him into my personal data pool. But as far as I know, most people seem like they listen on audio. 43% seems high. All that to say is that if you're not on YouTube, you could be missing out on a massive piece of your audience that is yet to discover you. So we've established that you should probably be on YouTube. And now I'm going to tell you how to upload your podcast to YouTube in the proper way, because there's a couple steps here. And if you follow them, your show will actually be designated a podcast by YouTube rather than just uploading the video willy-nilly. So you're going to go to your YouTube account, you're going to go to the studio, and you're going to click on new podcast. You're going to enter your podcast details, including the title, description, and you're going to upload your thumbnail. And how this works is that YouTube now has podcast playlists. And so to properly upload your show, you're going to create a playlist, and you're going to select that as your podcast. And then you're going to upload your show, you're going to upload your art, and then you're actually going to see a podcast tab on your YouTube homepage, which is awesome. You're going to upload your videos there, and then you're going to be in YouTube's podcast system. Rather, if you don't do this, they're just going to show up as videos. But if you make sure you follow these steps and actually designate a playlist as your podcast, you're going to get to take advantage of YouTube Music. YouTube Music is different from just youtube.com. The URL is actually music.youtube.com, and it's an entirely different ecosystem. That's where you can listen to music from, all your favorite artists. But within that, they actually have a podcast tab. And when you click on that, type in the name of your show. If you followed these steps, your podcast should come up. And I gotta admit, I kind of like the user experience on YouTube Music. I like the layout. Oh, and just to note, this is an app, but there's also a desktop version available. But for your podcast, again, to show up within YouTube Music, you'll need to properly set up that podcast playlist that I mentioned. Within that, what's dope is there is an option within YouTube Music to listen to the audio version of the podcast. So while I don't recommend only having audio at this point, and I've changed my stance on this throughout the last couple of years, you can still get discovered in the YouTube Music app, and there is a tab for audio for you. So keep that in mind. Not a fan of the static image, but you guys can take advantage of some of these features. But here's where I think this is game-changing, is the Podcast Explore page. And so you're going to get recommended videos and podcasts to watch based on your viewing history. And so this is where I think discoverability is going to be huge that the other listening platforms don't have, is this feature that someone else is listening to a podcast like mine, a podcast about podcasting that teaches podcasting, and then, hey, maybe an episode of mine will come into their feed, or maybe you have a fitness podcast and people are listening to something with David Goggins, and then your podcast might get pushed to that person because you're also in the fitness world. I think that's rad. We've never really seen that before. Yes, on regular YouTube, you get recommended videos. And so this is kind of like that, except it's for podcasting. And I think that's huge moving forward. People are always talking about discoverability. It's tough with podcasting, this and that. Well, maybe this will solve that. We'll have to see. And so it's just another thing that's going to help you get in front of more eyeballs. And if you have a video podcast, you can start to take advantage of this. I'm just filming on my iPhone with a ring light, so there's that. Make sure your background's good. Make sure your lighting is decent. You don't have to invest a lot of money. You can use a tool like Riverside, but you got to start doing it. And my stance is now firm on that. I've kind of changed my tune over the years. It used to be kind of like a nice to have, but I think moving forward in the next 5 years, if you're planning on sticking around for that long, it's going to be a necessity. You have to be willing for it to not be that good in the beginning. I'll go look at my video podcasts from when I first started, and I'm even embarrassed of some stuff a month ago, but you got to just keep cranking along. You got to be okay with quote unquote sucking at the beginning. And to be honest, I didn't start adding video probably until 20 episodes in, and then I was like, all right, I got to start doing this. This is episode 72. So I do have a lot of videos now out there, and you just keep getting better. You keep getting more comfortable. That's it for me, guys. I'm going to get out of here. I want to thank you for listening. And if you're really feeling the content and you're looking for advice on podcasting or tips and tutorials, head on over to thepodcasthaven.com. That's the ecosystem that this show Clip falls into. And on the blog, I've got over 100 articles now talking about equipment, talking about starting, marketing, promoting, booking guests, and more. So that's thepodcasthaven.com/blog, or just click on the blog tab at the Podcast Haven. I hope that this inspires you. I hope that this helps you. And I hope that we can connect at some point in the future. Keep listening, keep engaging, and keep creating. I'm out.